Welcome back. Today we're doing Objective 4, General Factoring. Let's take a look at how we factored a trinomial in an old form and see what it's like in this new form. Remember, A stands for your leading coefficient. And so out in front of our x, our x squared, we only had a 1. So when we were factoring these, we knew that we had to set up a pair of parentheses. And since x times x multiplies to x squared, we started with that. Then we said, well, let's look at the factors of 8 that add to 6. So we looked at the factors 4 and 2 and knew we could put them in here with little plus signs, so that when we FOILed back through, the factor x plus 2 times the factor x plus 4 is equal to x squared plus 6x plus 8. We're going to be doing the same type of factoring today, with the exception of the number out in front not being equal to 1. Here we have a 2x squared minus 5x minus 3. Now, we can't pull out a GCF because 5 and 3 are not divisible by 2, so we're kind of stuck. So this time, we want to look at factors of 3 and 2 that add to negative 5, or subtract to negative 5, depending on how you look at it. So what this means is we still need to set up 2 sets of parentheses, since this is an x squared problem, except this time we need, when we multiply our first term through, we need to get a 2x. Well, luckily, 2x squared, that 2 only has 2 factors, 2 and 1. So we're going to have one starting with 2x and the other starting with x. Again, this is because when we go to FOIL, when we do our first term, we need 2x times x to give us 2x squared. The next thing I want to look at are my signs. So my sign, since I have a negative sign here and a negative sign here, what 2 types of numbers are going to multiply to a negative number and add to a negative number? So we know one of them has to be positive and the other one has to be a subtraction, but we don't know in which place it's going to go. So this means we're going to probably end up having to set up multiple sets of parentheses for our guess and check method. The last thing I want to look at again are factors of 3, and luckily we only have 3 and 1. So that means we're either going to have 2x and x with a 3 here and a 1 here, or 1 here and a 3 here. Then we just have to figure out our signs. Again, maybe we have a positive sign here and a negative sign here, or a positive sign or a negative sign here, and I want to make 2 more with just the opposite signs. So these are all of our possible factors, but only one of them are actually factors of this polynomial. So now what you want to go through is kind of mentally FOIL in your head. Here, if we take 2x times x, we're going to get 2x squared, but then we're going to get negative 2x plus 3x, and that's going to give me positive 1x for our middle term here, and that wouldn't be any good, so we can cross this one off. Here, for mentally factoring, we're going to get a 2x squared as our first term and a negative 3 as our final term, but it's that middle term we're checking. So we're going to do 2x times negative 3 is going to give us a negative 6x, plus 1 is going to give me a negative 5 for my middle term, and I'm going to put a star next to that since that is what we're looking for. For the sake of this video, I want to just run through and search for the middle term just to discount these second 2 as well. So let's look here. We would have positive 2x minus 3x would give me a negative 1x in the middle, and here a positive 6x minus 1x would give me a positive 5 in the middle. So we know we can cross both of these out, and that my final answer is 2x plus 1 and x minus 3. Again, we found this by looking at the factors of 3 and 2 that subtract to negative 5, and then we played with our signs. We knew we needed one positive and one negative, and then we made them fit so that when we were to FOIL back through, we got our original polynomial. Now, you can also use an alternative method. You may have taught this under the AC method or perhaps the box method, but guess and check is tried and true, and it helps you with your mental math skills while we're trying to figure out that middle term, which is really the deciding term. If you'd like to look up those other few methods, you can go ahead and pause the video, and I even supplied you one of Mrs. DeVincent's of the box method in case you prefer. But once you're done, come on back. Welcome back. We are going to try a second example here, and it may be a little bit more complicated than the first. And the reason was that in our first example, our leading coefficient was a 2, and our last term was a 3, both of which are prime. This time, we're looking at 6 and 8, which are both composites. So our factors of 6 now are going to be 6 and 1, 3 and 2, so we have a couple options there. And our factors of 8 are 8 and 1, and 2 and 4, so we have a couple options here as well. So what's really going to be helpful this time is knowing what sign is going to be attached to both of our terms. Here we have a negative sign here and a positive sign here. So if we think to ourselves, what two signs must we have for numbers to add to a negative number and multiply to a positive number? And the answer is going to be two negative terms, right? These are patterns that you probably found in doing the last few examples. So when I set up my parentheses this time, I know that I'm going to have negative signs in here. What I don't know is if this is going to be a 6x and a single x, or if it's going to be a 3x and a 2x. So that is what we're going to try to figure out here. And we can do that by just guess and check, basically. We can try a few in there, and you can do this mentally, or you could sit here and write them all out. But I'm going to go with this 8 and 1 first. This is the first factor pair that I'm going to try. So I'm first going to fill in an 8 here and a 1 here. This would give me 6x times negative 1x would be negative 6x minus 8x. That would give me a negative 14x for my middle term, which is not what I want. If I were to erase these and switch them by putting a 1 here and an 8 here, I'm going to get a negative 48x minus a 1x, which would be negative 49x, and that wouldn't be good either. So I'm going to erase those. I could try it again over here with an 8 here and a 1 here, where I can try 3x times 1 is negative 4x, sorry, negative 6x, and here I would have negative 8 times 2, which is a negative 16x, but that would give me a negative 20x. If I switched the positions, I would have an 8 here and a 1 here. That's going to give me negative 16x and a negative 3x, which is going to give me a negative 19x, which is the factors that we need. And if this didn't give us the answer we were looking for, we would simply go back through the same process again, trying our 2, 4 factor, and eventually we would land on the one we want. What would happen if we didn't land on it? Would that mean that it's prime? I'm going to let you think about that. We can, however, check that we got our answer correct. So I'm just going to rewrite my factors here, my 3x minus 8 and my 2x minus 1 to make sure I did my math correctly. Remember, I'm going to FOIL. So I'm going to multiply my firsts, and that's going to give me 6x squared. Then my outers is minus 3x. My innards, negative 16x. And my lasts, I have to combine like terms, and I'm going to get 6x squared minus 19x plus 8, which is our final factor. So you definitely want to make sure that you check your first few as you go through. But other than that, be patient, use your mental math skills, and try to work out as much of the problem ahead of time as possible as you go through the practice problems and then take the quiz on Objective 4, General Factoring. Good luck.